call the meeting to order. This is the Litchfield Budget Committee, and this is November 29th. And if we could begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, our next agenda item is public input. We have a lot of our school crew here, so welcome everybody. If anybody wants to start out with a word of advice to us, this is your time. Okay. Everybody's excited. Okay, review and acceptance of minutes. We do have two sets of minutes. We have our November 1st and our November 8th minutes. So let's start with November 1st. Does anybody got any changes, corrections, deletions?
No.
If
Make a
not,
motion to approve.
all right, there's a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been made and seconded. There's no further discussion.
Thank you.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Aye.
One abstention.
Okay, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4,
Oh, yeah,
5,
we're-
6, 7, 6, 1, right?
And the next set of minutes are November 8th. Saved a seat for you. Welcome.
So here.
So are there any changes, corrections, anything to November 8th?
Make a motion to approve.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been made and seconded. There's no further discussion. All those in favor of approving November 8th minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? And any abstain?
Aye.
Yeah, so I abstained as well. So there's 3 abstentions.
Oh, there's 3.
Yeah.
4, 0.
Actually, I'm assuming Brent is going to abstain from this set of minutes as well.
I am.
Okay, so 4, 0, 4.
Nope. I'm so one. Nope.
Who seconded that? Was it you, Jeff?
Mhm.
You and Nikki said it. You fool me.
Look at the little placard they can raise. Me.
I second the motion.
All right, we had a lot of correspondence over the last 2 weeks. Let's see if I can capture it all. We had several histories. We had some salary histories. We had special education department histories. We had some attrition information that we had asked for. Let's see, co-curricular information that we had asked for. There was a question about nursing and how that budget number was arrived at, as well as what the basis was for the staff requests and the kindergarten teacher salary. And then there was actually something that I've been promising you for a while, which I was finally able to get, is object and function. So I just want to explain those. Those, as I said, a couple meetings ago, these are the broad categories. So when you look at object and you look at, when you look at function and you look at 100 salaries, or 110 salaries, that means salaries across every school district, every department. And so you can see how it's broken out. You can see, supplies, 610. You can see those are supplies across every, whether it be building and grounds, whether it be one particular school. So I find those broad categories helpful to compare year after year. The other way to compare it to is also, it's called function. So all your regular education programs, you can see year to year. You can compare all your special education programs and compare them year to year. Your legal services, you can compare, and they're all lumped together in those big, broad categories. So I find that an easier way to kind of get an idea of if the budget's in line, out of line, how it compares year to year. So I apologize for the delay in getting those to you, but hopefully you were able to take a look at them and you found them helpful. The one other correspondence that we had a young lady who is, I think, in the 8th grade,
Avery Fay, yes.
who apparently adopted the budget committee as her project, and she wanted to know a little bit about what the committee does, and is going to represent us with an ornament at the festivities on Saturday or tomorrow.
I think it's at the LMS.
The lights or the trees.
Yeah.
Festival of Trees,
Shop.
Oh yeah, the festival.
One Stop Shop.
Tomorrow.
Okay.
The one-stop shop tomorrow night. They're gonna have the trees on this, so it's probably something related to the tree.
Yeah,
tree
they were all, a
raffles.
bunch of the kids got different.
Yeah.
So there was a question of what colors and designs. So my only option was, well, if the budget is positive, it's black. If there's a negative, it's red. Money is green. So I was trying to get. I don't know what you represent the budget committee by, but so that was a fun piece of correspondence.
That was cool.
And I think that is all that I have. So that brings us right into school budget deliberations. So the way I had left it at the last meeting is that we would go account by account as it was presented to us. And if people had any adjustments or further questions, we would just go in that order as it was presented to us. So I'm going to start with the special services budget, and if people had any corrections, deletions, changes.
I can't answer them if they come up. I could. Very creative.
Might say it with confidence, and you'd be surprised what people believe.
Self-help.
So I appreciated the analysis that you had sent. I thought that was very, very informative.
It was a sheet that was passed on to me. As you can see, it goes back quite a number of years. It was a sheet that was passed on to me by Bill Spencer, and I have kept it up every year.
I think it's very good historical data especially when we have a committee that has a lot of new people here to have that institutional knowledge passed on is awesome.
Are you calling me an institution?
Aren't you?
Cindy, I think there's a couple of us,
Uh-huh.
or that should be in institute.
I definitely don't mean it in any negative way.
I know, I'm teasing. I'm teasing. All right, any changes to the special services?
I mean, this is one of those budgets that up until recently, we usually took a percentage off because of the historical data. I mean, is this object or function? Your chart is all encompassing, so I tried matching up the numbers, but
Yeah.
So I think it's hard to go line by line, but you can take a look at certain items. And to me, I think if a 3-year total is 90% of the budget requested actually gets spent, 5 years, 91%. I mean, it seems reasonable that we would take a reduction there.
But to clarify, all of the money that is not spent goes back, correct? Every dollar, nothing is.
That's how we end up with $700,000.
There's
in
a
unspent fund.
gentleman's agreement, or whatever you want to call it, that any special services funds are reserved at the end and returned to offset taxes. However, that also means you're raising people's taxes unnecessarily. And it's also, from year to year, can be kind of a false offset.
But they did present a budget that's $168,000 less than last year,
Mhm.
and it's based on the actual students that we know we have. Is that correct? That is
Yep.
correct.
But we hear that every year.
Every
we hear.
it is based on actual students. There are no, in the olden days, there used to be potentials. All of those potentials are taken out. So in the last at least 4 years, it's all been actual who we know we have today.
You may have situations where you don't know if students are going to stay into the following year. You don't know what students are coming in. It's very, very uncertain. And in the world of special education, it's very, very expensive. You have one residential student move into your town.
Mhm.
It's very expensive.
I understand that, and we have faced that situation every year. And every year we spend 90% of the budget. We also have a $100,000 set aside to cover those that has never been touched. So not only do we have a $100,000 fund to cover those expenses, we're building in additional cushion that was the whole reason why we had the additional fund to begin with. The theory behind the fund was we were going to budget tighter. We're not budgeting tighter, and we have a fund.
I'd say this
So
is
there's no
tighter.
additional cushion that's built in, especially to my budget. What is calculated here is based on the needs of the students that I know of at this moment. Things change. So IEP meetings happen throughout the year, services ebb and flow, placements for students can change. Having the financial means to make sure that we're meeting the needs of the students is essential to make sure that we're meeting our federal and state regulations or statutes. So I've put something together. There was already a reduction in it that I feel will meet the needs of the students without any further cuts to it.
I don't know. Like I said, I totally
I
respect
think
that.
cushion is the wrong word. It's the budget is built worst case scenario, as it should be. But our job is different from the school district's job.
Of the money that was returned, of the $600,000 that we returned, 200 is in the special services area.
Mhm.
So it's not.
Right, not
And you
all
have a
of,
It's
reduction.
not
of
the entire.
168,000.
It's not the entire 600,000 that was from special services.
so there's not a reduction of 168,000. It's that this year it came in at less. It's not like they took a
Yeah,
budget and
correct.
reduced it. So I just
Yep.
want to
The
clarify.
needs have changed.
Yeah, the needs have changed. Yeah. I took a look at the history and I looked at what 1% would be, what a 2% would be, and what 3% would be, which is still more money than has ever been used in the past. To reduce it by 3%, we've never reached that level. So I looked at the middle of the road. 2% would be 65,000, and so I just, to be nice, rounded it down to 60,000 is what I thought would be a reasonable historical reduction. Throwing that out for discussion.
Don't we need a second?
I will make that in the form of a motion, $60,000 reduction, and that is to the entire 1,200 special education programs. So it's not to tutors, it's not to professional services, it's not to tuition, it's just across the board, which is that 12, where is it? Total, it's a kind of at the bottom and then the top of the next page, the total special education. 1201. And the closest we've ever come was 2018. This past year, we spent 96.5% of the requested budget.
So has it been seconded?
Um,
I'll second it because my number is much higher to reduce. But since last year we didn't take any reductions, I'm willing to at least start the trend back towards looking a little more tighter on this budget.
Yeah, I think the last 2 years.
Previously, we used to go in that we used to take 5%
Every year.
It was $200,000. That was the cut. 60,000 is a move in the right direction. It's 100 grand short of where I was going to go, but I would consider this past year probably an anomaly. But
So,
I'm willing to accept that as we'll see how it goes.
and I would say, I think that you have been very transparent in my 3 years here, in the fact that you budget based on the information that you have, and also the fact that this money automatically goes back. So I would be dead set against cutting anything from special services.
But I think the thing is we're focusing on what we know
You don't have to
now.
agree with me. That's
No,
cool.
absolutely. But as we said, things change. If the kid's needs now requires something that in 12 months could theoretically change based on the services they're currently receiving, one, that means the services are working. That's great. And two, it means that those reductions could very well be that we should be facing reductions. Every year we see them. It's not like we always see the worst case. There's items in here, like you have a contracted bus to Alvern dedicated to this. We run buses to Alvern daily for other things. McKinney-Vento, that's a placeholder because that's been there every year. There are items in here that are recognized worst case scenario that we usually can streamline our transportation. There are savings that she does a wonderful job achieving savings. Great.
So the other thing to consider, and I want to give other people an opportunity to weigh in, the other thing to consider, which I neglected at the beginning, but I think is Corey's budget update that he gave to the board last night, or something to keep in mind, is one of the things that impacts our budget is not just what we budget, but state aid. And every year state aid reduces. So even if we start level, we're already behind the 8 ball and we're going to see a raise in taxes. So that's the other thing that impacts. Yes, we give it all back to offset the taxpayers, the next year's tax bill, but we're raising money unnecessarily when we're already struggling because the burden is increasing from the state level. So that's something else to keep in mind.
It's a smart move by the states. Good. What happened was when this first came up and we lost $2 million, the school board held 2 or 3 meetings town-wide and people forced the cut of $2 million. Now we're phasing it in. We're not seeing the same cuts because people are, it's like the frog in the hot pan. We're slowly cranking it up. People are getting comfortable with the increase in taxes, but not asking for the offsetting decrease. When we first faced the $2 million, we found the cuts, and then the state restored the money, and the money went back in. And now we're seeing the money being asked of the taxpayers without the corresponding offsets that we once considered. So
This isn't a $2 million loss over
It
this.
will
This
end
is
up
a
being.
4% over 25 years if it doesn't
Which will be-
change, and they're trying to get the state to change that funding method because it's not a good situation for any town to move that burden. You think these budgets in 20 years from now is going to be less than
Less.
$20 million?
Yeah.
No.
that's the
All right, I want to give other people a chance to weigh in.
Chair, I have a question.
Yep.
In this account, if there were a reduction taken, and say, for example, they were to have a deficit, there is a fund that could offset that deficit, correct?
Right now,
So-
it's a little over 100,000.
So there would not be any effect on her services, correct?
There's also the ability to call a special meeting.
That's
but
not
that's-
likely to happen.
But we hear that
Yeah.
if a student moves in, if 2, 3, 4 students move in, there is an ability, because we have to meet these services.
So
Right.
If we face that catastrophic event that could possibly maybe happen if all the stars align, there is a way to address that situation.
Yeah, and that question was asked last year.
So if people are unhappy with their taxes going up from year to year,
Mhm.
how happy are they going to be with a supplementary tax bill? And how much do you think that's going to pass? It's not going to pass. People aren't going to do that here.
Hey, if you want to put this in there, and that's fine, considering we have 2 contracts and a bunch of other stuff we're going to be looking for on ballots, and you want to put a higher budget out there, I'm not
So-
the one trying to sell it.
There are ways. You are correct. There's a fund out there right now that has a little over 100,000. The other way is not so much a special meeting, but the other way is a deficit appropriation. So next year, because we would vote before the end of that fiscal year, so you can add a warrant article next year that says due to unforeseen circumstances or whatever the case may be, and so that can be a vote that is taken next year by the taxpayers.
I just want to be comfortable that there'd be no impact on the services,
We have to
provided.
provide them.
no matter how, and they wouldn't have to go into other areas of the budget to, deficit other areas to account for that. If there is a special fund, then I'm more comfortable, not appropriating up front because that, as you say, it's, if it's unnecessary, if we don't have to do it, it's probably preferable when it comes to the ballot.
Any other thoughts?
I think it's just, and part of it maybe is just because I'm new to this, but I think it's hard to have a cut of, 60,000 and say, well, figure out what it is when it's not. It's easier in my head when it's more based on there's something, a couple of the things in here, what is and is not a need, when it's more based in that. But some of that is the history that I don't know, like some of the things I don't know what's a placeholder, what really is worst case scenario versus what are some of the things in here that are truly, so it's hard.
I just,
And it's also, we're not the educational experts. So for us to say, well, that's really not needed, this little section over here, we don't really have any good knowledge of what's needed, what's, potentially a want, what's a need. So that makes it a little harder because we certainly in years past have done the route of, what, I think you need to reduce your computers over here, this tuition over here, and that over there.
Has its own drawbacks. I
Yeah.
gotcha.
Yeah. So, any other questions, comments, confusion? All right. Hearing none. All those in favor of a $60,000 reduction to 1201 special education programs, and again, that's that broad category. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Opposed.
Or 4 fail, right? Or the 5.
All those in favor?
Aye.
3, 4, and all those opposed? Okay, so it fails. Tie vote fails. All right. Any other? Places that people want to make adjustments to?
There's an exception.
Just, we're still in special services. Yep. We're going to stick to that for a moment. And if there is no other adjustments, we can move on. So the next one is curriculum development. Curriculum, yep. Improvement in instruction. Anybody have any changes they would like to make here? Nobody?
Motion to reduce the bottom line by 4,000.
Okay, there's a motion to reduce the bottom line by 4,000. Is there a second?
Second. Okay, good.
Okay, and go ahead if you have a explanation or go the floor first.
Well, part of what I was looking at was it talked about underneath in the conference workshop reimbursement that there was a significant increase in that line. One of the bigger ones being sending the 10-member team to the competency design studio, and I know it just felt excessive to me for that many people. I didn't want to take the whole 7,500 because if they're able to get some people to go, but it sounds like a great opportunity, but there's a lot of opportunities that are already built into the budget as a whole for more. And it just seemed excessive to me in a place where we could cut it back a little bit.
Okay. Any further discussion?
Just as a parent, not a school board or a budget committee member, I was actually happy about that, having two sons who had gone through the high school where I still think competencies are there. But we also have both other schools developing competencies over the next year or two. So I think, personally, I think that is
So I'm a
one
cutter.
place.
And I like it. But this is one I actually wasn't going to touch because I think that even my short experience in the schools, I've not been terribly excited about some of the curriculum. So if we can improve it, I'm all for it. And I've heard lots of complaints about the quasi competency thing that we see at the high school. And if this is an opportunity to get that rectified and like really develop it and do it well, I'm not touching this budget.
It's, if I can,
No.
it is a cross district. It's really a great opportunity for us to get all three buildings on the same page with it and build a solid team that will help move this work, because although it is in place at the high school, it's not in the other two buildings, and we know that it needs work across all three. So it's
It's an investment.
it is an investment. It's an investment in our staff. And the reality is that this kind of a change, if it's going to be done and done well, has to come from the staff.
And I would also say that it's Mary's first year, and she talks about team and bringing things together. I think it's been a while since our schools have worked as a unit instead of three individual places. I think this is a great opportunity for them, personally.
So I want to keep in mind, although Nikki pointed out this as one area, it was
Doesn't have to
it's a
go
bottom
to
line
that,
cut. So
yeah.
she just gave that as an
Right.
example. So this is not to cut 5 people from this or whatever. It's an example of where she feels there's.
No, absolutely. And I'm all for revamping the entire curriculum. So I'm not, I think she needs the money to do it. It's a lot of money.
Any further discussion?
That said, if the school board transfers anything out of this, I will. I know you. I'll see you on the fields.
I'm a pretty tough cookie. I won't let it happen.
All right, hearing no further discussion. All those in favor of a bottom line reduction of $4,000 to curriculum, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Are those opposed?
Aye.
And abstain. Okay, so the motion fails, and I believe that was 3, I think it was
You can't even vote against a cut.
5, 3, 0.
No,
Thank you.
350.
3,
350.
350, yes, yeah. Any other changes to curriculum? All right, hearing none, we will move on to technology.
Thank you.
I have a question on this one.
Yes.
Kind of hard for me to read a lot of this, but how do I figure out the Chromebooks that everybody's getting across each, you start at 5th grade and go up?
They have been slowly implementing it lower and lower. So if I remember correctly, what's in this budget is to bring it down to 5th grade level. That's the next
I don't know
grade.
if I made
to-
the adjustment and provided the revised budget with it making the move down from the high school to the middle school. I'm not sure if that's in there
Okay.
yet, but
But there's Chromebooks at 5th grade and 9th grade, right? So there should be 2 sets, or this year we're not doing them because they're only good for 4 years or something, right?
Correct. So originally we were going to have the 9th graders be the recipients of the new generation of the Chromebooks, and then we were going to recycle the 8th graders down to the 5th graders. So the 5th graders would get a used one, basically the 8th graders one. But looking at the numbers, and it was a school board decision it was going to be smaller numbers from the 4th grade coming into the 5th grade. So give the 5th graders new ones. And then the 8th graders will transition in and bring theirs. So they'll have it during the summer. They can do their work that they need to do to prep for 9th grade. And they'll carry that on through the high school.
But going forward, though, we should see 2 sets. 2 grades should be getting Chromebooks. Of the 8, between 5th and 12th, there should be 2 sets of Chromebooks being.
Correct. Yep.
So how do I get a bottom line figure of how many new Chromebooks you're going to need?
think it was.
There's a like every year it's just based on enrollment numbers.
But I guess for this budget that we're voting on,
Sure.
that is you're actually
So it's seven,
across. What's
I
that?
think it's page 2 and it's line 734, additional equipment.
26,000.
Yes.
Yep, I think it changed to 101 if I'm not mistaken, instead of 133.
104.
104.
Right. Yeah, it is confusing because it was originally
Yeah.
in 31 because it was going to be the high school that was going to be receiving them. But at the school board, since they changed it down to the fifth graders, I think it was just changing those numbers. But originally it was in the high school.
It was enrollment number plus 15, I think.
Yeah, I mean, the dollar figure hasn't changed, it's just where it's located that's changed.
Right.
So it's the 26,000.
So 40 lives.
Correct.
For the next few years, we only need one.
That'd be a question for her.
And just to clarify, am I mistaken? The next few years, we'll only need one class set of Chromebooks because they haven't reached end of life, correct? We might need a few
The future,
replacements.
yeah. So the plan going forward, ideally, is going to be incoming fifth graders will receive them, and they'll have them through their tenure at the middle school, and then the incoming freshmen will receive them as well, and they'll have them for their
Okay.
tenure.
And they can always recycle them down to the elementary school.
I was just wondering what's like the seniors from last year, they're only a year old. Those went to the fifth graders this year.
The senior ones, we were able to make more carts, and that's how we added some extra stuff at the elementary school, and those were also recycled down at the middle school to help with offset the one-to-one.
So I make a motion.
Yep, go right ahead.
I know I'm gonna get crucified on this one, but I mean, I'd like to make a motion to cut the 26,000. And my reason behind that
I'll
is,
second it so you can talk about your reasoning. Who wants to cut 26,000 from the Chromebook?
the amount of money it costs per Chromebook, I think you told me it was right around, what, 120 or 100 and,
It's going to be $250 each, and that includes all the software and everything that goes along with them, management.
I'm talking the actual cost of the Chromebook itself.
Mhm.
My reasoning is I believe parents are sending kids to school that want to have, if that's part of the curriculum. Well, most kids out there these days have an iPhone or a cell phone that costs way more than that. So I don't see why the parents couldn't foot the bill for that Chromebook. I mean, I understand you want it as part of the curriculum, and that's great, but why the taxpayers have to pay for it versus the parents of the actual kid, when I think it's something they should pay for.
Right. So, one of the struggles in like a classroom, if they bring their own device and say, like, you have your Apple, you have your Chromebook, you have your Windows machine, you have some kids with tablets, you have some kids with phones and whatnot.
But you could, the school board can say, well, for these kids, it's required you have this actual Chromebook. I mean, I'm not saying that people need to come in with an iPad or a different thing. I'm just saying that I believe in this town that I don't see a house out there listed for sale under $300,000. I don't think you can find that. So I believe that you can afford to live in this town. You should be able to afford your kid to pay for their own Chromebook.
Well, to your concern, I'm not going either way. Was there not a bring your own device program at one point?
We had a pilot program,
Mhm.
which we piloted the Chromebooks, and it was a small group, and the parents did
Did
pay
we
for
have
that.
any issues with them parents buying the more fancy model or alternate models?
Yeah, what we did was we narrowed it down to one or two different models, and it was each year was like 40 people that could do it for 2
Right.
years. Yep.
So, I mean, there's the discussion, but if that concern, I think that shouldn't be the primary concern. Whether it should be by the school or the taxpayer, the parent or the taxpayer, that's a different conversation.
So don't we see reductions in other places though? Because we don't need as many textbooks, things like that, because we're one-on-one?
Yeah, there is some reductions in other places, moving more to that online curriculum and everything.
Increase in somewhere else in software? Like there were other software increases. Face it, the textbook manufacturers
How about you
aren't.
let him finish answering the
Oh, go
question?
ahead. All right.
But I will say that that's kind of like a philosophy thing. The decision to have, whether or not the district does it or if the parents do it, you're right, that is a different discussion. And, as far as from my side of the table, it's kind of like the Chromebook, we manage them, we get them, it's kind of more of a bigger discussion, on that. But if the kiddos have the Chromebooks, I mean, however they get
I
it.
look at, it's going to a cost that's going to keep occurring every single year. So if the parents buy it, they're the ones incurring that cost to send, for the kid to have their computer. I mean, I don't think it should be the school's or the taxpayers' responsibility to provide computers for these kids. I mean, if it was a computer lab, I get that. That's like 30 computers in a lab, but not every single kid in the 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th grade, and then going down to 5th grade and then up, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think the taxpayer should have to buy that. I mean, so I know I'll get crucified on it. It's just, I think I'll
Couldn't you
point
just
out there.
for textbooks though? Like,
Yeah.
why-
I was just gonna say, when you,
But then you go also-
public education has to be so that all the students can take advantage of it equally. So by requiring the parents to do it, there are families that can't afford it. It's sort of like you go to work for a company, they provide you with the computer, printer, the tools to do your job. So that's kind of what the computer, the one-on-one, the Chromebook is doing. It's taking the place of textbooks. For, as Jen said, you wouldn't
You're going to have
have it. You would
I
have a textbook list that you send out to parents and say, all right, go buy all of these textbooks because you're going to need it in the classroom. So kind of looking at it as that sort of a tool.
Yeah, but a textbook isn't going to have to get reordered they last like
5 years. That's usually what
But-
they go. It's back in-
They're outdated.
Issue calculators?
What's that?
Does the school issue calculators?
Yes.
They do?
Two
Parents have
students
the
that need
option of buying them, but there's a couple of sets for each of the math
Just to add
classes.
to that,
So if you,
More sense.
as a teacher, having piloted
I'm
a
saying it's the
program, bring
same
your
thing,
own,
right?
All right, hold on.
having piloted a program, bring your own, you're gonna, and I'm sure Mary can attest to this, you're gonna have teachers going right back to paper and pencil, because what happens is you're spending all your time trying to get the Apple to work and the Chromebook to work.
I'm not suggesting that you bring your own, whichever one you want.
Well, the problem is if the parent's buying it, they can buy whatever they want.
But can't you deem what computer's going to
And
be?
They don't have to follow it.
So
And
I
that's
think,
exactly what happened.
I think Frank, you had a question?
No, I had a comment. As a fossil, I've grown, I think, in my long and sordid life to realize that technology is essential in the growth of our students. And I think, personally, I think it's extremely important that they have a consistent ability to perform as a group and have the teacher have that ability to know that they are working off the same equipment. There are people that in town, believe it or not, that can't afford to do that. I don't mind, I don't have children anymore in the school. I don't mind my tax dollar going for that, because I think as you look around the world, pretty soon it won't be textbooks. And I think we're at the point that we're depending upon technologies such as that. And I think that's probably the last thing we should be thinking of cutting.
I'm not asking to. I'm not
No,
saying
no,
take
I-
it
and
away.
I- and I
just
certainly
want parents to be
understand,
responsible
but-
to buy the equipment for their kids.
I think as part of the education process, I think we should be able to provide a consistent product so that the learning can take place consistently. The teacher knows what they have. The security issues are not there. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I would say too, the one thing about talking to some other districts that do have that model where the parents pay, logistically, it is very difficult. What happens a lot of times is at the beginning of the school year, like either the parents forget or they're trying to get the means to do that. And then the kiddo might go without for a week, 2 weeks before, because it's on the parents or the family to provide it. There is a convenience factor to that where we can have that ready for them, second, third week of July, ready to rock and roll for day one of school.
Any other?
No, so I actually agree with you. Realistically, I think it should have been implemented via warrant and people should have weighed in. Unfortunately, I think the horse has left the barn And I don't think there's anything we can do about it at this point, other than remind people that we had this discussion that it should have been a warrant, and it wasn't. So, but I don't think you can at this point roll back time.
No,
Then
I
again, I'm
figured
also
I
the
get-
person
I
who
said-
doesn't want my kid to have a Chromebook because I want them to not have a calculator to 8th grade. So realistically, the only way they're getting a Chromebook is because the school is going to give it to him in 5th grade because I wouldn't be buying one. So
Like I said, I don't expect it to pass. That's how I
it's
feel.
good to
so-
have a discussion.
No,
It's
I think it's
absolutely great to have a
Discussion
discussion.
is important. Yep.
And that question of what lays to the taxpayers and what's to the parents and where that responsibility, that's an important thing to consider.
You look at Litchfield, there's hardly any business in this town.
Mhm.
And anything you propose, you're putting on the back of the taxpayer, not on businesses that make, millions of dollars. So you're eventually taxing people out of this town. And then when people say, well, parents don't have the money to do this for their kids, that's fine. But eventually, and it's not just your stuff, I'm just saying, like I said, I've seen taxes go up and up and up. Obviously they're going to, but you can't, how many times can you keep going back to the trough before you're going to have people say, I can't afford to live in this town anymore. And then a lot of people, they're like, well, too bad, move. That's not right. People have built their houses here, been living here for 30, 40 years, and you're eventually forcing people out. And it's not just your budget. I'm not saying for you, it's just in general.
In general. Any further discussion?
Like I said, I like the principle. I just don't think it's workable.
Yeah, there are the different models for having technology in school districts. One being bring your own device, and one-to-one being the other. This was the option. The one-to-one option was the one that the school board chose. So,
but they didn't bring it to the people. They just chose it on their own.
But they are elected officials that chose to go in that direction, and that was the model that the school board did choose to go with.
There
So
was
at
a
this
discussion
point,
here, though.
yeah,
There was a discussion here that as a one-to-one with a bring your own device, the budget committee did not have the purview to discuss it because there was no budgetary impact. And that once it became a budget impact, it would go to the voters. That step never occurred. But at this point, the horse has left the barn.
Yeah, we can rehash what should have and could have, but going forward. So there's a motion on the table to reduce $26,000 for 734 technology equipment additional. Is there any further discussion?
She could.
Hearing none. All those in favor of the cut of $26,000, please signify by saying aye. All those opposed? Aye. All those abstain. All right, so the motion fails 170. Any other technology changes that people would like to propose?
So how long, the CHS laptops and desktops, how long do we anticipate the life of those? Is it the 3 to 5? 3-year laptop, 5-year desktop?
everything, whether it's a desktop or a laptop now, is going to be a 5-year plan. So you won't see those come back around for another 5-year cycle.
At least that'll feel a little better next year. How about the Switch? What's the life on the Switch?
Yeah, the switches, those are about the same, about 5 years. And we had to go to the next level because of the technology.
Any way we can consider doing like 2 years and then 3 years and not do them all at the same time?
Correct, and that's how it is. That's the cost of just one.
Okay, how many do we have?
It depends on the school, but it'll
District-wide.
range from probably about 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we should be looking at 5 a year then, total?
Roughly, some of them like there's another level switch that is, we call it a core switch, and those are in the 5-year plan because those are a lot more expensive. So, but yeah, these are just like the basic ones that help everything communicate. So.
Any other questions or discussion?
How come there's 2 administrators at CHS who get cell phones and 1 at every other district, every other school? Or is that plan that much more expensive?
I'll probably defer to you on that one, but the administrators at the high school.
At least there's twice as many. It could be 1 and 2 or 2 and 4. I don't know. But there's twice as many at the high school.
There's more administrators. Like you have your athletic director.
Guidance.
Needs a cell phone. Guidance needs a cell phone.
Counselor. So the administrators, they're considered building level administrators.
But don't we have those positions in like middle school?
Now, for
That's-
example, the athletic director, if they're out at a game or whatever, they have to have that contact.
Okay.
That one I happen to know. I don't know why. I don't.
Yeah, and the facilities director and the maintenance director are housed at the high schools.
Okay.
So you'll also see that in there too, because their actual offices there. So that's
Okay.
how we label that.
Anything else?
So how did we arrive at 15 extras? If we do, is it Chromebooks? You just said do enrollment plus 15.
Mhm.
Why 15?
It's based on kiddos coming in. So like the middle school this year, there was 8, and there was another 4 or 5 at the high school.
Okay.
So we just took that number and added on
So
there.
it's anticipated like if you haven't, if you're buying for 5th grade, like a 7th grader comes in, then they're covered. Okay.
Right, and then it also helps replace some of the loaners that might be in the library or in that department.
How about the smart boards at GMS?
Yeah.
I know of at least 2 that really need a replacement.
Yeah, and we factor in as many replacements as we can. And last year we went and we restructured because the high school had a lot more money than the other schools to replace those.
Mhm.
And now that the high school has more of the newer technology, we went and we spaced it out. I mean, in all honesty, a lot of smart boards could be replaced, but we just try to be fiscally responsible. And as they come up needed, we'll fix them. And then as they die throughout the year, we'll replace them or whatever.
My concern is the or whatever, because I think I have my kid in one of the or whatever classes.
Yeah.
It's a little.
And that was one of those, and I know the classroom you're talking about, and that was just one of those scenarios where we test it before the teachers come in,
Mhm.
and then there's just a failure that happened in between then. And to get in there to replace a full board is impossible until we have a break because there's drilling and a whole bunch of other
Christmas
things.
is
So
really great.
yeah, but we did get that working though.
Excellent.
So
All right. If there's nothing else on technology, let's move on to the high school.
Thank you.
thank you.
Back in my day, we had a chalkboard.
That's right.
We did just.
How are you, sir?
All right, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good to see you again.
You here?
You still subbing?
No.
No.
No, had to back away.
Oh, I'm sorry to hear that.
Oh, thank you.
All right. Campbell High School budget. Does anybody have any adjustments they're looking to make? Or questions they have?
I kind of had a question, just trying to get a sense of like how other people on the committee feel. 'Cause I wasn't here for this presentation, but I watched it and we got some of the questions answered.
Yep.
There was some discussion about lab fees and some of the classes that are not required or that students can choose, and that there was a decision made to put more of that back in the budget. And you can see some of those items.
Sure. That was for the Family and Consumer Science
Yeah.
program. Yep. Yeah, they added $3,000 back in. We were charging students a $20 lab fee per semester. But we don't charge lab fees in any of the other programs or courses. So I think when they were cutting the budget a number of years ago, Lynn had asked to supplement the program in order to maintain all the various labs that she was doing by adding a fee into it. And then in my conversations with the superintendent, there was a decision made that it didn't make sense if we're not going to charge lab fees in other areas.
And I think that's just a general philosophy. If you have a chemistry lab, you don't charge the students for the chemicals they use, or you have the tech ed, you don't charge them for the materials they use. So it's just equity across all the curriculum.
I guess just being someone who doesn't have any children and trying to get a sense of like what is the core curriculum. I only have my own,
Sure.
and I remember Family and Consumer Sciences, we paid an extra fee for some of the sewing and some of the materials. And then when we had our tech class, we paid an extra. There was just how they scheduled it.
Mhm.
But so Jen, I think it goes back to what Brian brought up with what's on the student and the student family and what's on the taxpayer.
Right. Yep.
I just didn't know if other people on the committee I just had a thought about that. And
I see both sides.
yeah.
There's pros and cons to both approaches. I mean, I also had to pay in school for those activities. I had to pay for wood shop and technology, and I had to pay for home ec and other stuff. But I also didn't get a calculator till 8th grade, so my
Yeah, me too.
whole point of view is completely different. But if we don't charge, do we charge for wood shop?
No.
If we don't charge for wood shop, which is also not a required course.
Yep.
Then
Yeah.
then it's pretty clear cut there that we should not charge that one.
I think when we talked about it, Bill, that was the last lab fee, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Now we should talk about parking.
Any
And I don't have any horse in that race because my kid's walking. So.
other?
Just seems in the English budget.
Mhm.
Page 4, I think. At the bottom, the textbook replacement. I mean, do we have any idea how many books get damaged or lost, and are students ever responsible for paying?
Yes, yep. So we keep track of them. The teachers pass out book cards, and then at the end of the year, when they don't pass them in, they turn them into the office. And the students are charged for them. They can't walk in graduation if they don't pay for them. So they may lose a book freshman year and never pay for it, but ultimately they do. The money, however, doesn't go back to the school. It goes back into the general fund. So we don't see that money. So as we were mentioning, we're getting further and further away from textbooks, but we still have textbooks in many of the classes. So we still have to budget to replace some textbooks, and some of them are significant in terms of their costs. So
So in theory, there should be an offset on the revenue side for that. You would know. You're the budget guy. You should know.
For lost.
Well, if we charge a fee of the students that goes to the general fund, there should be a line on the other side that
It's
offsets.
collected on your side and then it comes over to us
And then it
towards the
comes
end of
over.
the year.
yeah, I'm not sure how it will
It's a
go.
miscellaneous
There's a
miscellaneous
miscellaneous.
I'm
revenue.
saying it just washes.
Yes.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah.
25,000, I think 25,000 miscellaneous
Yep.
in the revenues, so that would be where it would fall.
That one I do think that a parent should be on a parent. If a kid loses or damages a book,
Absolutely.
that should definitely, but it looks like it's covered.
I'd say just looking into Kindle editions. They're so much cheaper. And if you've got the Chromebook, you got the Kindle app. I was an English major, so that's why.
Same here. Yep.
As far as cuts.
All right. I don't necessarily want to apply it under CHS, but we had talked about co-curricular and athletic activities. And CHS happens to be the biggest pot of that. So this is more of an across the board cut, but I would like to propose, make a motion to cut $12,000 under co-curricular activities.
Second.
And this, again, I was just looking at history and I took into account the information we got from the SAU about cuts that are historically made. We've made about $30,000 in cuts in previous years. So I took into account the addition of lacrosse, the change in the administrative help at the athletic department, although that's not co-curricular. I tried to take into account some of the changes that were in the list of that came from the SAU office. So and just grand total, I'm looking at 21 instead of the 30, a little over 30 from last year. So I put 12 under co-curricular and 9,000 under athletics. So right now I'm just looking at co-curricular. And it was based on history. It was based on the information that came from the SAU, what we cut previously, but now what we need to add back in and not make such a large cut
So Cindy, is that inclusive of salaries and benefits or separate? Because I had some recommendations under salaries and benefits for the open positions that are there, or is this just based on?
You know what? It's the 1400, excuse me, it's 1410. So I do not think that counts salaries and benefits. So let me just, and again, this, I'm only doing it here because CHS has the biggest line item but these are just across all the district.
So 1410?
1410, yeah.
Yeah, so 1410 is in salaries and benefits.
Okay.
So you want to wait till we get there, or?
Yeah,
it makes it kind of.
it doesn't matter to me. Like I said, this is a 1410 co-curricular activity. So
what was your number?
12,000.
So no one's actually going to believe this, but my number was higher than that.
I want her number.
Well, like I said,
You can amend it.
I'm also proposing 9,000 under athletics across.
All right, so
Yes, so mine was inclusive of, so I had 5,400. So basically the vacant positions, like just my third year here, a lot of these have been vacant for the entire time. So I took athletic activities. That's actually 1420. So my athletics would be separate, I guess. But I took CHS open positions was 28,000. So I took half that at 14. And then LMS was 8,000. So I took half that at 4. And then GMS open was 6,000. Half that is 3. So 7. So I had 21,000.
Close.
between,
Well, 21 for me was the total of athletic and co-curricular.
Your total was
She
21.
just said that. I think that was
I had 5,400 for
Right.
athletic.
Yeah,
Separate.
separate. So it's hers is just.
23.
So
we
you're
had a total of 26.
you're
We can go with
welcome to amend my.
I will amend your motion to 26,000.
Second.
Okay.
All right.
Further
That's just
discussion?
co-
Is this
I think co-curricular.
This is just
Tonight.
so Jen, so this is 1410. The total
So-
co-curricular activity.
1410 would be 21,000.
Right.
1420 would be 5,000. So I don't know if you
Oh,
want to do
so
them separate.
so yes. So this is 21,000 just on
So then
co-curricular.
there's no amendment needed. If it's 1410, it's because athletics is 1420.
Right. So this is 1410 co-curricular. I made a motion for 12,000.
Right. I'm amending it to 21,000.
21,000. Okay.
Are those the salary lines?
They are. So
Okay.
these are the
Yeah,
salary lines.
I'm looking at my budget specifically, but I don't have the salary budget, so I'm not understanding what salaries you're talking about.
So these are all, so to go through, it's all of the current vacant positions that fall under co-curricular.
Sure.
So for GMS, vacant position, art program, chess, destination imagination, Lego, ski club,
Okay.
all those positions are open. So I took half of all of the open positions because historically these positions have been open in most of the schools for some time.
I get that.
Um,
The high school positions, can you tell me what those are?
Yep. So that would be art club, Fac Sci, First Advantage, Gay Straight, Granite State, International Club, Literacy, Math Team, Newspaper, Outing Club, Pep Rally, SAD, Ski Club, SSCH.
A number of those. SAD is still active.
So they may be still active, but it's listed in the budget as a vacant position with no
Advisor.
advisor.
Be listed as a vacant position because at the time the budget was run, the employee was in the system.
And that's why I only cut half of it. So
Okay.
And again, this is the broad category of 1410, which covers the entire district. But because we're in Campbell and Campbell has the biggest chunk of that budget, that's
Right.
only why we're proposing here. So it's not because we want to cut all of it
No,
under
I
CHS.
understand that.
It's
Yeah.
the broad category of function of 1410.
But I think in hearing, for example, SAD, I have an advisor for the SAD club, and I'm not sure what level, what tier that is. in terms of what that person
So
gets?
SAD is $888.
Okay, so that's 888. You mentioned Key Club?
Nope.
No?
Key Club's filled.
Okay. Could you go back and repeat from the beginning of
Granite
CHS?
State,
Yep. So Art Club,
Yep, that's okay.
Cure Fac Sci. I don't know what that is. It's a $3,000 open position.
That's curriculum facilitator science. That's
Oh, well, then that's a filled position. Yeah, that's a filled position. Absolutely.
First Advantage or First Ad.
First, that's robotics, right?
That's robotics. That's a filled position. A straight is a filled position.
Granite State Challenge.
That's
I don't
not.
think that's not.
Nope. International Club is not. Literary is not. Math team is not. They volunteer. Newspaper is not. Outing is not. Pep rally is not. SAD is. Ski club is not.
Summer school coordinators.
Yes, summer
those-
school coordinators are.
Is or is not?
Is correct. Yep. It's actually a shared position, which is why I said are. TAP, I have no idea. Tech 2 is. Yearbook is. Key Club is. And team leader for Unified Arts is. I don't see in there, and I just want to backtrack a little bit because our other curriculum facilitators,
So they
Okay,
may have
so
been
looks like.
in the
they see-
system and there was no changes in the employees. So
Yep.
at the time when I ran the budget, if there was changes, that's why sometimes they end up as vacant positions.
Okay.
So it holds the place, but the person is not listed.
Right,
That doesn't mean they're all vacant.
okay, right, exactly. So what I'm looking at, just looking at that there, these numbers we're talking about, is 67, 75, 83, 11,3, 12,3, 14,3, 17, 18,000, 19. You're talking 20,000 right there that are listed.
Yeah. So the last two are I didn't include Jennifer Watson is listed there, so I didn't include those last two. So I
Oh, I
have
see.
So I have 17,000 that you just accounted for.
Got it, okay.
I suggested reducing 14,000 from your budget specifically, so I don't think we're that far off. So I don't know if we should change it by school. I mean,
it's always the purview of the principal what groups run.
Right.
So we're just looking at dollars. We're not picking which is going to be filled and which is not going to be filled. So
and this is going to go across the whole budget.
across the
for
whole
Corey to
budget
figure out.
for all three schools.
Got it.
So if we're comfortable with this number, then we vote for it. If we think a different number is appropriate, then that's part of the discussion. So right now, there's a motion to amend, and Jen's number is 21,000. Across the board co-curricular, that's district-wide.
Well, since you were pretty close just at one school, I think you could eke out the rest of it at the other two. So it seems like it's a reasonable number. And again, just because these are not targeting programs that exist
Not at all.
and aren't to deny these are programs that are in the contract that aren't offered. So why fund them by raising taxes if we don't have the club or the leader for them to run? So it's not taking away from the students. It's just tightening the budget to more what we actually offer.
So I just want to make sure I understand. I see the vacant positions and I see those getting cut, but they're not vacant positions. I just want to make sure that you understand that.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
We're not cutting
Yep.
any position.
Yep.
Right.
What we're doing is saying across the district, we know there are unfilled positions. So we're taking a broad cut.
Yep.
And it's going to be the SAU working with the three principals to figure out where that should fall.
Okay.
Any further discussion? All right. All those in favor of the amended motion to make it a $21,000 cut into the broad category of co-curricular signify by saying aye.
I
Any opposed? Any abstain? So the The amendment passes 7-1-0, which now becomes the main motion.
Tell him I threatened you.
And if there's no further discussion on
He
the
already
main
doesn't like
motion,
me, blame me.
all those in favor of a $21,000 cut in the broad category of co-curricular, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain? So the motion passes 7-1-0. So again, only because the high school happens to have the biggest budget in this area, I was looking at athletics. I have a number. Jen, it sounds like you have a number.
Yeah, so I had 5,000.
Okay. You want to make the motion?
There's nothing I would rather do. I will make a motion to reduce 1420 athletic activities by $5,000.
I'll second it.
So
You rounded down, so there's that's good there, right?
right. So the vacant positions are 3-on-3 basketball. It's all it's all CHS. So 3-on-3 basketball, a freshman basketball team, JV cheer team, climbing wall. So this is the only question that I have. So the soccer JV coach for girls is listed as vacant, but that position is now filled.
Yep.
Correct. So that would be $2,000 difference. I'm going to amend my own motion to $3,000.
Actually, you can't. I got to think about this now.
Well, Cindy had a different number, so you could amend it.
I could, but my number was higher.
So I
you
still
can
did-
either
I still
withdraw your
cut it in
motion.
half. No, I'm going to keep it because my initial number was 11,000, and I just got that to 5,000. So I'm going to go with it. Sorry. Oh God.
So what you do is you feed me the paper. I'll make the motion.
All right.
And again, that's the broad.
Across, basically, it's just the middle school and the high school because GMS doesn't have athletics. So it's across
Is the
the district. Yes. There's no further.
Oh, I can't make that motion.
Yeah.
Oh, because you're.
Oh, you
Jen.
can't.
I can't make that motion.
That's true.
I can though.
Can I
All
make
right.
one observation?
Yeah, please.
The wrestling coach, the boys varsity wrestling coach is listed as vacant. That is, however, filled.
I'm going to
So-
withdraw my motion.
Okay, so Jen does have to withdraw her motion, and you're going to have to abstain on
I
this.
do have to abstain.
Oopsie.
Sounds like I'm gonna like Cindy's number better though. I mean, I don't have as clear of a understanding of who's actually in there and not. So
So there's $5,000 that's listed as vacant. That's not vacant. Actually, closer to 6,000, I think.
Yeah.
all right, but you had 11, so that brings you down to 5, right?
You want to make the motion?
I want to be comfortable with my motion first. I'm trying to get an understanding of which ones truly are vacant because.
I can
Go ahead.
I can tell you that. Do you have the listing in front of you?
I couldn't get it there.
It's under salaries and benefits,
Mhm.
page 26. We're looking at C.
Almost cut down the first try. 27. I'm on supplies. Salaries and benefits of CHS?
Here, right here.
It's under,
So 3-on-3 basketball.
Yep, 3-on-3 basketball. The basketball freshman HBF, the cheer HJV, the climbing wall. The girls, the soccer is a filled position. Then the next one is volleyball tour, that is vacant. And the next one, the wrestling, is a filled position.
It looks like there was about $5,000 there, right?
Correct.
All right, so I will make a motion to reduce it by 5,000.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been made and seconded. Any further discussion?
I think it's, again, similar principles. It's not cutting any positions that are filled. It's just bringing it in line with what we actually offer.
Anybody else? Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of a cut of $5,000 to the broad category of athletics, which is function 1420, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstain?
Aye.
Okay, so that is.
Good catch, though.
6-1-1.
I thought that would have been your out later.
All right, anything that's more specific to the CHS budget? Because that was the broader.
So this challenge
Yeah.
day thing, is that gonna be an annual program?
We're looking at it as an annual program. Right now, we're joining with Auburn to share one of 3 days with them for this year. The goal would be to do it annually. I think we could do it every 2 years and have it be an effective program. It's a climate changer in your school. It's a culture changer. I have not done it, but Mike Jetty has and Mike Perez has. And it's about getting your community closer together. It's about anti-bullying. It's a tremendous program. Everything that I've heard about it from people who have experienced it is about eliminating so many of the challenges that you face in schools with kids harassing and being difficult with each other and bullying, and we've got a good climate at Campbell. But this is a program that makes a significant difference in kids' lives and staff members' lives as well.
I just don't feel like I have enough information on the program to support it or not. I get very uncomfortable with some of these things because I don't know what. No, I just because this can be well done, or this can get very controversial, and people can have their, very, very, very upset about what is being pushed towards their kids. So
this isn't new. This is something we've offered in the past. My last child graduated in 2011, and I know that one participated in it. So I think it's something that has a track record in town, and that if it was an issue, you would have heard from parents by now.
Yeah. Merrimack High School has done it for years.
Okay.
Auburn has done it for a couple of years. It's a pretty powerful program, and it really is about getting kids to understand their differences and their similarities, and getting past the obvious challenges that they create for each other in schools. So I haven't experienced it, but the people that I've talked to who have found it life-changing in many ways, and not controversial at all. Kids come out of this, however, sometimes emotionally drained because they realize that they need to be different people after experiencing this. So, yeah.
I don't know. I'm a reading, writing, arithmetic kind of person, so I get a little uncomfortable when we start doing social programs in the schools. So.
Yeah, no, I understand that, but we also know that in some ways, social emotional learning, if you don't have students who are ready to learn social emotionally speaking, they can't learn anyway. And this is it's a valuable way to get your community working together. And as I said, we have a good community. We don't have a great community. I think this would be a nice way to help pull them together. And if Mike Perez were here, he could speak more eloquently about this than I can.
The only thing we just have to remember too, and from years past, we should be careful about getting into policy versus money.
I can cut it. So
No, you know what I'm saying?
my not cutting it is how comfortable am I with it.
But we don't want to cut it for the policy reason.
Right.
We want to, if you were to cut it, it would be for a financial reason, because
Do
we
I?
shouldn't be dealing with the policy.
I can coach it financially. Don't you worry.
I understand, but I'm just.
16 grand annually, I can definitely
there
coach that as a
any-
financial.
Just any way to get more info, like, what are we getting for that 16 grand? So 3 days.
3 days.
So it's having outside people come in.
Outside people coming in, team of 4 to 5 people, working with approximately 300 students. So most of our school. And they would do it over a series of 3 days. And in the proposal, we actually talked about sharing one of those days potentially with LMS and having 1 day spent down there. But it also, with the contract with the challenge program is you provide them a hotel room for the 3 days, and there's all those other pieces of that. So it's all inclusive of them coming here, working with the students.
So let's keep in mind too, this is a co-curricular program. We've already made a $21,000 cut to co-curricular. It'll be up to the school district to decide where to apply that. Maybe next spring, this will be something that they decide they'd rather fund other things. So it's not for us to decide which programs to fund, but just that, again, that broad look, and we've already made a reduction to co-curricular.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I'm not trying to make policy things, but I mean, is this something that the administration felt was needed, or did parents say, we have a problem and we'd like you to look at a way to solve it? And have we reached out to like whether our parent body is interested in this even coming in?
Wouldn't that be a
Again,
question of
it's
the school
not
board
coming
meeting?
in. This is something we've had for about 10 years now, and it was because we had some serious bullying issues going on. That I do know when it originally came in. So again, it's been going on for 10 years. I think if parents had an issue, we would have heard by now, because that's one thing parents in town are not quiet about, is when they have an issue with something.
No, but if it's so good, then why haven't we done it in recent years?
Because we have. So it's usually been funded by grants. It's been funded
Correct.
some by donations. There's been some business funding. So I assume they're at the point where we've exhausted all of the freebies. And
All right, so when was the last time they came?
Prior to my time, I couldn't, probably about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. I know Mike, my assistant principal, has been at the school 6 years. So I'm assuming probably 4 to 5 years ago. Yep.
Oh, I guess we'll wait and see what comes up. We can always, I guess, cut it next year.
anything else that you want to look at for Campbell High School? Hearing silence, and we'll move on.
Awesome.
Thank you.
You, Carrie, you received the answers to your questions regarding the reality babies.
Oh, yeah, I think we got that last meeting. I think you were all over it.
All right. Good.
Yeah.
All right, middle school budget.
Good evening.
Hey, welcome. Any places in the middle school budget?
Sorry, Mr. Lucklider. I am, oh my God, I can't even look at you. Um,
It's okay, he's really good at
I
like
miss Burke.
standing for his.
So I am going to make a reduction to 610 supplies or make a motion for a reduction to 610 supplies for $5,000.
Second.
So my logic is it's currently factored at 386 students at $40 each. Given the one-to-one situation, I wanted to bring it closer to what the high school is. So the high school is at $22. So I factored in $25 and rounded down because I feel really guilty. So I just feel like that with the Chromebooks, there's less need for paper type supplies.
Does the high school have a Project Lead the Way though? Like, would some of the materials and supplies be used for other than paper and pencils and copy paper?
The middle
school.
for Project.
Well, I'm
Lead the Way?
saying would because you have a Project Lead the Way pretty
Yeah.
well implemented. Do some
Yeah.
of those costs reflected in those supplies? Because I'm not sure that the high school would have. I'm not sure that we're comparing apples to apples when we do high school costs.
Yeah, I
to
mean,
middle
so
school.
there's a slight reduction in, obviously it's very slight this year. I think in terms of the one-to-one, the impact on supplies, it is going to happen over time.
Mhm.
I don't think in 1 or 2 years you're gonna see a drastic. There's so many things that goes into supplies. Paper is part of that, but there's just so many variables to classroom supplies, and so as we look at curriculum resources over the next few years in our cycle, I think that's where you're going to see the reflection on not only supplies, but also how and it's not necessarily a huge reduction, but it's just a different way to do curriculum resources. Instead of paper books, now you're buying licenses for various web-based materials. So, I understand the concern there. I absolutely am tuned into it. I think it's a little soon to do that this year, and we're settling into the one-to-one right now.
Because this is your first year.
This
of
is our
full-
first year right
and the
now.
high school's had 2-3 years now. So they've
Yeah.
had an opportunity to.
I mean, I think that as I say, as the curriculum resources, because what we really want is we want a toolbox for the teachers so that it's not just one resource. We talked about Newsella as one that's, so various tools like that are web-based, and then that will sort of turn the tide toward digital based and away from. But there's a number of things that come out of that supply account, and even paper, the amount of paper that we use for special education, for example, that paper is coming out of our supply account. So I mean, there's just a lot of things that are in there that are not specific to the one-to-one model.
I think too, we go technology and we reduce paper in the lot. Some people, I still like my paper.
Mm-hmm.
So I can't see that you're going to
Save the world, man.
I recycle every sheet. Like, you see me at the dump every Thursday with my pile of paper. But so it's just, I like the idea. I think it's something to strive for. But I mean, we're going to have some teachers who fully embrace the Chromebooks and others who don't necessarily. You're still going to have handouts that people like to highlight because I like colors on my paper with my blue pen so it stands out. So I like where you're going. I think we're a little early, at least for that big of a reduction. And I can't believe it's twice in a row tonight.
Sorry. And just looking historically, the number is right on. So when you bring in the Chromebooks, those go to the 5th grade. So that will mean 6th, 7th, and 8th already have them. The entire school will have the one-to-one,
We are right now 5 through 8.
5 through 8.
So that's
All
to continue the cycle.
To continue
with a
the
new-
cycle.
Yeah.
So I don't really have any data to know if it's impacted this year yet, other than the year to date, which doesn't really tell us anything.
Again, I like the idea. I think it's too soon.
Right. Any further discussion?
I know, right? Some people don't think I test my water or something.
The motion is to reduce $5,000 in 610 supplies, which is on page 1. The whole budget line is 102, 111, and then 40610. Any further discussion?
It's killing me here.
Hearing none. All those in favor of a $5,000 reduction, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Abstain. Okay.
That was painful.
It fails. 260.
Well, that was all I had.
You can mention me again now.
Anybody else?
Direct eye contact.
Well, she's like, I did my job. I asked the
The
question.
philosophy makes sense. I think that's a cut for next year.
Yep.
When we get at least.
And we're going to watch it and look at that use and how that's being implemented in the classroom.
All right.
I just had a question about like textbook replacement. It's one of those ones, it looks like, how much of that, are there specific older textbooks that need replacing that you have a plan for? Or is it, because the way it looks is just sort of placeholdery.
Yeah, so there's a number of things that come out of that. It's typically, so our ELA department, sometimes it's a series of books, sometimes it's a content specific area that we make a purchase. But it's usually it is replacement. So it's that's not a big number when it comes to textbooks, $1,600 actually. So these are more they're smaller supplemental type things. Sometimes it might be like one little set, not 100 of them, but a smaller group of them. Just books that age out.
And the reason the history is a little funky is in the last couple of years, it's been moved around. It used to be under the school, then it went under
Right.
the district, and now it's back
It
under
was-
the school.
it was
So that's
separated
why
out.
the history looks
Yep.
a little funny.
Okay.
Keeping you on your toes. Make sure you're reviewing it.
Anything else for LMS? Hearing nothing, we'll move on to GMS.
Thank you.
Thank you. Here's the downside to having kids in all three schools. Nobody's getting pencils.
You can easily take every single one off.
Just gotta be nice about it, that's all.
You know what was interesting? One of the things I did notice, one of the histories I sent out was looking at the 10 fund, the 21 fund. So it was kind of the individual schools. And for the last couple of years, the school that has been consistently underfunded has been GMS, which I thought was kind of interesting.
For 610?
For in general, GMS, I did one of those calculations looking at district-wide school board, GMS, LMS, CHS, and SAU. It sort of breaks it down. Again, it's just another one of those big, broad categories. And for the last 2 years, GMS was short 100, almost 110,000, and then 140, almost 143,000. So
But they were overfunded in other areas.
the other schools were, or other departments were overfunded. So it balances out. But it was just struck me as kind of interesting that the one school that we consistently run over in is the elementary.
But that's
And I
part-
don't know if it's because we're adding programs or we're seeing a bump up in the number of students that are coming in. But I just thought I'm just throwing that out as a little factoid.
I think it speaks more to the school board though, right? Because they put they allocate where the funds go. We just, they transfer money around. So it's, we give them a budget, it's their budget, and if it all works out at the end. But that's what we're here for.
So I do have a reduction and no surprise, it's going to be 610 supplies again. So only because I got some additional information, so I'd like to hear feedback. So $6,000 reduction for 610 supplies.
Second.
So the thought process was you're currently at $60 per student. So I was taking it down to $40 per student. And so the reason for this is I heard feedback from just my own group of, friends or whatever, that there are teachers out there that actually don't provide supply lists right now because there are so many supplies that it's not necessary for the students to bring supplies. So
Wish I'd known that when I bought my school.
and I don't know if that's accurate or not, which is why I want to throw it out there because it kind of speaks to a little bit about what Brian was talking about. Why should the taxpayer have to pay for notebooks, pencils, folders? So I just wonder if you had any insight or feedback on that.
Well, a couple things. We're actually a bit concerned about supplies at the moment.
Okay.
We have had an increase. We're going to be doing a paper order in January. I was talking to Debbie yesterday. And we have had an increase in the predictions this year that we built the budget on were, I believe, 61 for kindergarten, and we have, as of tomorrow, 83. For grade 1, it was 73, and we have 90 students. Elementary education is supply heavy. We're not one-on-one. We have a Chromebook cart for every grade level, but we use a lot of paper, folders, rulers, pencils, markers, crayons, paper clips, all of that kind of stuff. So the rationale for the other two schools was we're one-on-one, it should be a reduction.
Mhm.
We're not there.
Mhm.
And we increased this year from 314 students in fiscal year 19, the current year, up to 340, and that's grades 1 through 4. That's a pretty big increase. So.
All right, I'm gonna actually withdraw my motion.
Okay.
I'll withdraw my second.
Wow.
Thank you.
I'm just sitting here. I'm just amazed.
I've seen the paper. I can be a nice person.
They're not talking about anything about your personality.
8:30, so let's not get side conversations going on. Any further discussion or questions? I thought I heard you about to speak.
Well, I mean, I would say as someone, again, kind of outside to this to me, that makes my ears perk up if there are teachers or there are situations where students don't have to buy supplies.
Most students do buy supplies anyhow, but there are some that are really critical for the functioning of the classroom, right? And to go back to the earlier discussions when we were talking about the high school, the notion of providing for a common education, that's what public school is about. We don't want it to be that there are kids with supplies and kids without supplies. So, and we don't want it to be visible who has the means to have supplies and who does not. That really needs to not be visible for the health of kids, really. So yes, we do provide a lot. A lot of teachers do send out supply lists. If there are specific things, I mean, kids still provide their own backpacks, lunch boxes. Most have their own collection of markers and special pencils, that kind of thing. But we as a school feel an obligation and a duty to provide what students need to learn and to do their schoolwork.
Gotcha.
So long as you don't pool the pencils. I really don't like that.
Say that again.
So when the teachers pool the pencils and I get back the junky ones after I send in the nice ones.
Anything for GMS?
I think we've done the athletics or the curriculum, the after co-curricular, right? So we're good there. I don't know if there's really much else other than. So one question I had for Corey, because I was looking at your default budget thing, since we you included 28,800 for outfitting the kindergarten here. Did that get removed from the default budget?
Anything in the kindergarten is.
All right, because it still looked like you removed like the salaries from the default, but not the support.
Salaries stay in the default because they're contractual positions for kindergarten.
The fifth one?
Those stay. The fifth does not.
The fifth should not.
The fifth was not added.
Right, and outfitting the fifth should not be in the default.
That's not in the default.
I just wanted clarification there. Okay. Because I know it's a good number in this one, so.
All right, if there's nothing for GMS, we'll move on.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next is food service. I know we got a presentation. This is really not one that we do anything because it's self-funding. So it always cancels itself out with revenue. So
Hopefully.
it does. I already checked the revenues and made sure. So I'm going to just move on to HR.
Nope.
And if anybody has anything
Straightforward.
On the $8,000 budget.
Well, we should look at every budget, but there's not, I don't see that there's much here.
I'm gonna assume everybody's okay and move on to salaries and benefits. We got quite a lot of information about salaries and benefits, a lot of historical information. One of the things that I wanted to call your attention to is we had asked for information on attrition for this past year and how we fared in terms of what was proposed in the budget last year and what we ended up actually hiring. So the information that was provided, there was some savings in salary, health, dental, FICA, retirement, and the total savings was $218,944.60. So that is interesting to me because that's after last year a $200,000 reduction was made across the board in salaries last year.
So is this in addition to that 200 or is this compared to that 200?
This is after 200 reduction last year. There was a $218, almost $219 to the good this year.
So it'd be a total of like 400 then.
Yeah.
Which is actually on order with, in looking at the numbers that you sent. I think you're talking 370, 420, 428. 2019 is the low year.
In the last couple of years too, there've been different business administrators, different superintendents, so.
But this year also, we had an additional teacher that wasn't budgeted, so that would cut into that.
So, and that also, that 218 is after the last minute hiring of a teacher that wasn't expected as well.
All right, you're thinking this through.
What?
No, is that, no, I was wondering, is that not accurate? Because like, I don't want to make thoughts.
218. 218. So what I did was looked at all the employees that left and then the salaries of who came in, and it's the difference.
Okay.
Yep. And that's what in many years past, the budget committee always took in attrition because, and they actually looked school specific. Because generally your high school has more, they have to be, they're sort of special in certain areas. So they have to be a science teacher. They have to be a math teacher. And so more of your attrition is like middle school and elementary school because they're a little less specialized in general. And then that fell by the side of the way. That stopped. Last year, when Corey came on board, the school board looked at the history and the numbers, and they decided themselves to make a $200,000 attrition reduction. And that was very appreciative of that. This year,
I think we did cut 50,000 on the benefit side as well, so it was a total of 250.
a total of 250. Okay, I just looked back and found the 200. So there was an attrition cut made by the school district last year. That has not been made this year.
Any particular reason for that?
In looking at what we've currently have under contract in the budget, I'm showing and projecting out to the end of this year about 158,000. And that's if you don't hire anybody throughout the rest of the year. There's no turnover during the year. I think getting that too close, it concerns me in that. So I didn't proactively do a cut this year for that.
Even though we've been notified that 3 are going to retire.
There's no guarantee they're going to.
Right.
Well, I understand,
They're
but
tentative.
that's
There's no confirmation until after the budget's in place.
No,
So-
understandable, but it's the same thing that we've always looked at, right? There's always these what ifs and could be's and maybes, and we still have to make our best estimate based on that. And we've done it in the past, and we just didn't do it this time. So
I like to err on the side of security and knowing that the money's available if we need it and these
I
things
know.
happen.
I appreciate that.
And that is the school district.
That's absolutely the school district's job.
Yep.
And I just the angry notices when the tax bills went out. So I'm trying to balance those two competing interests.
So I took a look. Let me see if I can remember which number I used. I believe, oh yeah. So I looked at, again, all salaries and all benefits. And I said, what does 1% look like? So 1% of salaries is about 122,000 and 1% of benefits is about 52,000. So I was, and that totaled about $174,000. So that's less than the 250 that was proposed last year, and less than the 200 that's still to the good after all of our hirings this year. So just throwing that out as if somebody wants me to go with that number, if somebody wants to do a different number,
I would feel a little bit more comfortable closer to the 158 that you referenced.
I referenced 174, but
No, not you. The core.
Oh, okay.
That's what I'm projecting based on what's encumbered against the budget currently.
So I would lean towards 150, but that's me. And yours was 174.
174 is 1% of salaries and benefits.
You only need one of the three to actually retire to make up the difference, I would think, on that. And the odds of all three not retiring after notifying of retirement, I think is pretty slim that you're going to go 0 for 3. So I would be comfortable with 1%.
Is that a motion?
I will make the motion 1%. You're 174.
Okay, there's a motion to reduce salaries and benefits by 174,000.
Second.
It's been seconded.
And based on the spreadsheets, I mean, 2019, you're almost at 1%. Previous years are range between 2.3. Well, we have it now. 2015 is 1.15 up to 2.6%. Average being almost 2%. So 1% splits that difference. And again, you have 3 people who have notified of retirement based on the amounts we're looking at. I would assume that you could make up the difference on that pretty easily. Because I don't expect that all 3 do not retire.
Any other comments or discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of a total reduction of 174,000 for salary and benefits, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstain? So that it looks as though it's 5-3. It passes.
I was, just to explain I'm more comfortable with what Corey's, I mean, he works the figures and I'd be more comfortable with closer to what he, that's all.
I think that provides, I don't want to use the word cushion, but I think that provides some
Breathing room.
historical room. Anything else for salaries and benefits? Or I should say, salaries and benefits. Any other areas?
That's what cost codes like their job. The savings in the healthcare, is that already reflected in this budget? No, yes?
Yes.
All right.
We did one lump sum cut on page 47 under district-wide
Okay.
benefits and charges for each of the different groups that we have. Teachers, support staff, and non-union.
Page what?
47
47?
I see increase in,
under 2,900.
yeah, all right. Minus 33, no, thank you.
Oh, I must not have the updated.
Yeah, I don't think this is the updated one. So what was the reduction since mine doesn't reflect it?
You don't have that?
I think mine's dated. Mine's October 29th, so if it's been updated. I have it in there, so. The hazards of going with paper.
There's 25,000 that's coming out for health insurance. And that's a 1.1 savings overall.
Yeah, I didn't update my pages either. All set?
I think so.
All right, I'm gonna move on to the SAU budget.
Thank you.
Anything?
I think we covered this one pretty well, so I'm not sure that
All right. Hearing nothing, moving on to school board.
Just a question, and I might have missed it in an email, but did we get an answer to the year-to-date expense for legal services?
No, because I forgot to write it down.
Honest
I make a
answer.
motion to reduce 50. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh.
Look right now.
I thought I looked at legal.
You really want to sleep on the couch, don't you? That includes the fact that you're negotiating 2 contracts also, right? Is that one?
For,
The legal.
oh, we're doing that
counsel.
right now.
Yes, so next
Next
year,
year.
assuming they pass next year. Right. So what is legal? 2318.
So from that perspective, it would seem odd to have the same level of legal services in a year that after you negotiate 2 contracts.
You never know. You never know what's coming up legally.
No, I know, but you know you're negotiating 2 contracts now.
Yeah,
I guess the
same-
assumption
same
if they pass, I mean, that's an unknown whether or not they pass.
Mhm.
It does seem that it hovers around that number regardless of whether or not there's a contract.
Legal services, year to date, we have available budget of 5,000 right now. So they've encumbered, between encumbered and expended about 45,000. Yeah, well, that's why there's 5,000 left. So that's where they stand. And the date of this is November 15th. This is year to date of November 15th.
So 45,000 of that has been spent so far this year.
Or encumbered.
Yeah,
In other
that's-
words, they already are anticipating needing to pay it out.
And it's probably gonna, with negotiations, it's gonna
Yeah.
overrun that.
And the Pinkerton case, was that?
That was last.
That's
This
last
should be
year.
the second year of it, right? So last you had
I
Case
mean,
was,
the
the
legal
case
expenses
was
that went along.
finalized
Right.
last year. So
Yeah.
that-
So that shouldn't be.
Yep. Oh, don't get me started. But 3-year average, it's there, right? So
No, I'm not cutting any money from it.
Last year they spent 39.
yeah, but the 2 years before that, they were both over 50.
Well, that's because they were negotiating. We're into 2-year contracts, so that would be, so next year there should not be a contract negotiated, so it should be a slightly lower year. The following year should be up again.
Right. So it should be like a 2016 year of 56,000. I mean, you're still over.
No, I was looking at 2018 last year. It was 39,000.
It's hard to know. That's one of the ones that's hard to. All it takes is one lawyer changing their billing rate by a bit.
Oh, it's not even a lawyer changing bill rate. It's one unusual case that comes in. All right, I'm going to assume that we're all set with school board then. Move on to business.
So what movie licensing do we do?
The company's name is, it's like Swank Movie Licensing or something like that. Or isn't it that?
Yeah.
No,
we've been doing
it's
it
something
for-
weird.
Since 2010, I think.
Yeah.
Something
It's
that's.
something like for watch it. I don't even, I think that's honestly the name.
Law change, federal law change. We had to.
Oh, is this the one that has the like subtitling and stuff?
I'm not sure. I know that there was a law
Something like
change.
that.
We had to set
Yeah.
in
Like
for
you need a
some movie
certificate to show
licensing.
movies in your
Every
school.
movie technically you show, you're supposed to have the certificate
Yeah.
with the movie so you can show it to a
Serious.
group.
I think that's the name of it.
I know.
Believe it or not.
You'd think there'd be a more appropriate name for a
You would
school
think so,
base.
What else they do on the side?
However, we all will remember it. So that's that's been
You
So,
won't forget it now.
That's right.
When you see it.
moving on to transportation. So tell us again where we stand with this.
So
and-
we were supposed to start negotiations on the contract today, with Mike being out of town. We rescheduled to next week. However, with the two bids that came in, they're coming in at about 3% over last year, I believe. So I think there is going to be some room to move the transportation, but I'm not sure exactly what yet.
Considering what they were charging us for gas, that should be going down.
In theory.
It's outrageous. Outrageous. So this includes a 5% increase?
Yeah.
All right, I can do this math.
So I missed. So I thought special services transportation was under general transportation, but it's part of the special services.
Under
budget?
special services, yes.
Yes.
Okay. Because transportation for special services, we assume that worst case scenario that we're not going to be able to share. We've got the, got to bring 5 buses to 5 different locations, and we again assume that worst case scenario.
Yep.
And yet every year, we're able, when the actual school year starts, we're actually able to get better pricing, some sharing and whatnot, and bring that number down. So I was going to propose a reduction to where I thought transportation was here.
That was factored into my thoughts for special ed because I saw that.
No,
So, yeah.
mine were different.
Good. That's why I had a much higher number.
That must be so. So I'm.
Budget's still open.
No, yeah, it is. So you assumed a 5% increase. It's going to be a 3% increase. It's not that much.
So this one would be 10,827 difference. Because 27,067 divided by 5 times 3 or times 2 gives you the 10,827.
All right. Are you making?
Well, I mean, are we doing transportation as a whole or transportation including special
So
ed?
to keep it clean, we should probably do this transportation regular
All right.
and then go back.
So I would make a motion to reduce this budget by 10,800.
Okay, 10,800 reduction in transportation. Is there a second?
All right, so the 27,000 factors in a 5% increase. I simply divide by 5 and then took 2 of those, which is 10,827, so 10,800. That brings it to a 3% increase.
I think I'd rather wait for the school district to do it on their own once they've negotiated.
Are we going to actually have an opportunity to do that before we vote on the budget?
So when we have our hearing, we'll make our final motions and decisions that night. So I would, they need to have it by January 10th.
Right, but we need to vote before then.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Well, so yes, you could vote before them, but after the hearing, we go through all of it again. And if we decide that we don't like their number, they have a new number, we make new decisions that night. So you have up until January 10th to make additional changes. And then after deliberative, if there's any changes at deliberative, we also have another opportunity to make changes if we think they're necessary. So tonight's not the end of it.
No, but I think people are going to start looking and see, well, what kind of increase am I looking at? And it'd be nice to have the potential increase to be more accurate. We know that a 5% increase is not accurate based on the discussion here. So when people start getting worried about what their tax bill is going to be looking like we can either say, hold on, we might take a reduction in transportation, or we can say it's going to be a little closer to this. So it's all however you want to present it.
Isn't that kind of making a cut for Facebook though?
Hey, we know it's not 5%. We know it's closer to 3%.
Well, we don't know it's not 5%. it looks like it could be, I mean, I'm just taking Corey's words. It looks like it could be closer to 3%.
Then you can vote no.
Yeah, I think the comment was the two that we got are in the 3% range. All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of a cut to transportation of $10,800, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
So it passes 5-3-0. Any abstain? I
No.
don't.
That's 4-4.
Oh, 4? Oh, okay, then it fails 4-4. So do all those in favor of the cut, raise your hand. Okay, 4-4. All right. So I do want to go back. Like I said, I was holding on to transportation because I thought it was part of regular transportation. Generally, we have a pretty significant savings in special services transportation. Our 3-year average is we only spend about 90% of what we budget. Our 5-year average is we spend about 85% of what we budget. I know transportation has been getting, for us, the special services department has been getting higher the last couple of years. So I was looking at 10% reduction would be 43,000. So I just rounded it down to 40,000. So it's about 9%.
Second.
Any further discussion?
Would this be specifically to the special ed transportation line?
Yes.
So, like Cindy was saying, though, they traditionally budget, one per kid, and usually you can double up. You see that 34,000, or was it 4? So there's a substantial amount that goes to Alvern. We already have buses that run to Alvern. So hopefully we could piggyback onto those runs. Yeah. So I would hope that we could talk them into running a bus that we could service and
40,000. Yeah.
limit a run maybe. There just seems to be must be a way to.
Not all students that are going to other schools go at the same school hours either. So you just keep that in mind.
All right. Historical data. We don't spend it
Yeah,
on.
I'm simply looking at history. We assume the worst case scenario because we have to, or the school district has to assume the worst case scenario. But when we get closer, a year from now, when we start looking at actual providers, we will start looking at where the kids need to go. We historically come in much better. So that's where that number comes from. Any other?
And just to point out, with a $40,000 cut, you're putting it within $1,800 of where we ended up this year with a 3% increase
Mhm.
to the contract. Just
And the special services budget is $160,000 less because there's less of a need this year. So that's probably still a reasonable place to be.
And we didn't take any of the other cuts we traditionally had taken on special ed. So
Any other questions? Hearing none. All those in favor of a $40,000 reduction to special services transportation signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Any abstain? So I believe that sounded like it was 6-2.
yes, that's right.
Okay. Any other accounts that we have not covered?
Building and grounds.
Building and grounds. Alrighty.
So the only thing that I had here, so I'll make a motion to reduce 610 supplies, hate supplies, by $6,000.
Second.
Okay, it's been made and seconded, $6,000.
So my rationale was the reason that we're asking for the increase is because of the new K portables, but we underspent last year. And I don't know that we got a really great reason for why we underspent last year. So perhaps if you could enlighten.
Why we underspent?
Underspend on what?
I don't have an answer.
He
for
was
you right
really good at managing the project.
Well, so I guess if you want it to be level funded, then
Right.
well, tell me why. Like, we didn't spend this money because, or we're going to need this extra money because.
Well, that was the justification. The kindergarten, we don't know what it's going to take to
But-
maintain that, and in terms of supplies. So it's kind of,
So is that
so
like
you would
your
say a safety net.
hand sanitizer, bleach? Like, what is that? Do you know?
It's, yeah, cleaning products, mops,
There's
floor.
4 bathrooms in there, right? One each or 2?
There's 4. That was really my justification, and David's as well. So
High for 4 bathrooms, but I don't know.
So this is like floor wax and soap and
But those bathrooms would be seeing a lot less use than the other ones, so they may not be as difficult to clean. I mean, granted, you have
80
kindergartners.
kindergartners,
There's-
less usage.
Well, there's 4 bathrooms. Right?
Valid point.
Each one would have per bathroom. It'd be less usage because you have 4 bathrooms split between 80 kids as opposed to 400 kids and 3 to 6 bathrooms.
They still need to be cleaned daily.
Yeah.
Yeah, but there's
More than once, probably, too.
well, there is a difference. Like, you have kindergartners who may make more of a mess, but
Yep.
So it's, again, I think one of those situations where we're not going to know yet. Just the data. But
Am I looking at it right that in 2017 the actual was almost 25? Well, it was 24.3. In 2016 it was 23. And there was a dip.
yeah.
Do you have any other historical data?
No. Oh, let's see. Actually, what do I have it in here? Uh, 2015 was also 23,764. So,
I'll withdraw my motion.
withdraw a second.
okay. Yeah, that's curious that why there was an underspend. Such a large underspend this past year. I'm gonna guess,
Something
Were
got
we-
charged.
or were we understaffed and so we didn't.
Clean bathrooms.
No, but maybe not do 5 coatings of wax. We did 3, that kind of thing. Because it is kind of curious that every other year is falling in line.
Different vendors
That's true.
could be shopping around, too.
Yep. All right. Anything for buildings and grounds?
The fence is going up in the spring, right?
Hopefully. Separate money, that's not in here.
Huh?
That's not in here.
Oh. It's been encumbered, so I can always take it out. So.
Nothing?
They did a lot on this to take out some of that like maintenance and repair stuff we had talked about.
Mm-hmm. Because the school district has put a list aside for end of year. So they did take out a significant number of projects ahead of budget committee.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would rather
It
see-
does make our lives easier.
Yes, but then you're hoping that they significantly underspend, which then means that they're not spending the money on what we had hoped they would spend
All
it on.
right, so I'm going to say that we're good for tonight. The total, just my scribbled total right now is a total reduction of $240,000. Which is about, I was gonna do it off the top of my head. I think it's like 24 cents off, but I'm not gonna do that, 'cause it might not be.
So the main thing that we're still unknown then is the transportation budget. And
Transportation.
whether the contract, well, the contract would be a warrant article, so it doesn't affect that number anyway.
Right. So, we're scheduled for the town to, meet with us next week with any warrant articles. They also have a contract that I am not sure where they stand on. I think they're ready to bring it forward.
We have a tentative agreement with the police union. They need to ratify it. The board consensus approved it the other night pending approval by the union, and then we will take a formal vote. But we anticipate hopefully having everything to you next meeting.
So there'll be no voting next week, just presentations.
Just presentations.
Alright.
Well, not even presentation, discussion on warrant articles.
My only question, the reason I bring it up is because of the chorus event at Griffin.
Right.
So-
I had questioned that.
As much as I'd like to be in two places at once, I haven't
Well,
quite mastered that yet.
And the committee could receive the information and choose to vote, but right now it's not,
That would be against our bylaws, wouldn't it?
the committee can suspend their bylaws. So, any other member input? Any public input?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
I want to thank everybody for coming. We do appreciate your input when we have questions. This really helps to have you here. We do appreciate you coming out at night to be here to help us out. Thank you. Thank you. So, all in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Okay. See you next week.